The sun was just dipping below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and violet. The wind swept across the plains of the Harper Ranch, carrying a chill that made Jed Harper pull his coat tighter around him. The land was quiet, as it had been for generations, wide open fields, rolling hills, and the distant silhouettes of mountains. Out here, on the edge of human space, life was simple, and solitude was expected. Jed liked it that way. It was peaceful. He walked along the fence line, his boots crunching the dry grass, checking the posts and wires. The ranch had been in his family for decades, and he felt a deep responsibility to keep it safe. Herds of cattle grazed lazily, their lowing barely audible over the wind. A few birds flew overhead, returning to their nests before nightfall. Everything seemed normal, yet there was a tension in the air he couldn't explain. Jed stopped for a moment, squinting at the horizon. Something strange caught his eye. At first, it looked like heat waves shimmering in the distance. But there was no heat. The air was crisp, cool. The shimmer didn't move with the wind or with the Earth's surface. It hovered, faint but undeniable, over the northern plains. Odd, he muttered to himself. Jed had seen a lot in his life: dust storms, wildfires, even the occasional meteor streak across the sky, but he had never seen anything like this. He instinctively reached for his radio to call the neighboring ranchers, but the device crackled and went silent. No signal. Shrugging, he decided to walk closer. His curiosity was stronger than caution. There was something unnatural about the shimmer, something that pulled at his attention like a magnet. As he approached, he noticed the cattle had stopped moving. Their heads were up, ears twitching, eyes fixed on the same spot Jed was staring at. Even the birds froze mid-flight. Jed's heart started beating faster. There was no sound now except the wind. The shimmer was brighter, more defined, almost like a wall of light standing in the middle of the plains. He blinked, wondering if his eyes were playing tricks on him. But no, the shimmer was real. And it was getting stronger. He remembered a warning his grandfather used to tell him. "Out here, son. Some things are better left alone." Jed shook his head. He was a rancher, a man who worked with the land and animals. Fear had its place, but curiosity was human. And humans, he thought, were not meant to cower in the face of the unknown. Jed stepped closer. The air seemed heavier, almost alive. It hummed with energy, sending vibrations into his feet. The shimmer pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. His skin prickled, but he could not look away. There was something intelligent about it, something observing him back. Then, almost as if spoken inside his mind, a voice whispered, soft and warning, "Don't. Look there." Jed froze. His pulse thundered in his ears. He searched the empty plains around him. No one was there. No one could be there. The voice wasn't human, and it wasn't outside him. It came from the shimmer itself. Fear crept in, but Jed forced himself to stay calm. He took a deep breath and tried to reason. It's probably just a reflection. Some strange atmospheric effect, he thought. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. His gut told him this shimmer was something no human had ever seen before. As he stood there, the shimmer shifted. Shapes formed within it, strange geometric patterns that twisted and rotated in ways that made Jed's head spin. He felt a strange connection to it, like it was trying to communicate. Images flashed in his mind. Alien landscapes, cities of light, beings unlike any he had imagined. They didn't speak in words, but their thoughts pressed against his mind, probing, testing. Jed staggered back, clutching his head. The images were overwhelming. Most people, he realized, would have turned and run. But not him. Not humanity. Humans had survived the cold void of space, the harsh deserts of planets, and countless dangers on frontier worlds. Humans were resilient. Humans were curious. And Jed, for all his simple life as a rancher, felt that spark deep within himself. He focused, steadying his breathing. Instead of fear, he let curiosity guide him. He tried to understand the shimmer, to read its patterns and movements. It was difficult. Nothing in human experience could fully explain it. Yet, Jed felt a growing sense of purpose. He was witnessing something extraordinary. Something the universe had never shown a human before. Hours seemed to pass, though the sun had barely set. The shimmer pulsed slower now, almost as if it was waiting. Jed noticed the stars appearing above him, bright and indifferent. He realized he was standing on the edge of something vast. Something beyond the ranch, beyond the plains, beyond human knowledge. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly small, and yet, inexplicably, powerful. The cattle began moving again, cautiously grazing as if nothing had happened. Jed didn't notice them. His eyes remained locked on the shimmer. The voice whispered again, faintly, "Don't. Look there." But Jed understood something crucial. Fear would only blind him. Humans were not meant to blindly obey. They were meant to face the unknown, to adapt, to endure. That was the difference. That was humanity. He took a step closer, ignoring the warnings. His boots pressed into the soil, and for a brief moment, he felt the land itself resonate with him. Jed Harper, simple rancher from the edge of human space, was standing before something that could change everything. And he would not look away. Then, suddenly, the shimmer changed. The patterns sharpened, and the air around it seemed to ripple like water. Jed felt a pull, a gravitational tug that made his knees weak. His vision blurred, yet he did not retreat. His mind raced with possibilities: what this shimmer was, what it wanted, what it could teach humanity. And in that moment, Jed Harper realized that he was not just a man on a ranch anymore. He was the first witness, the first human to confront something utterly alien, and the choices he made in the next moments could define the future of his species. The night fully fell, and the shimmer stood silent, awaiting his next move. Jed's heart pounded. He swallowed hard, and whispered to himself, "I won't look away. I'm not afraid." The wind howled, the stars twinkled coldly above, and Jed Harper stepped forward into the unknown. The shimmer hovered over the plains like a silent sentinel. Its light pulsed softly, casting faint reflections across the ground. Jed Harper stood at the edge of his ranch, his boots pressing into the cold soil, feeling the vibrations from the strange energy emanating from it. The air felt alive, almost humming with power. Jed could feel it in his bones. This was no ordinary phenomenon. For a moment, he considered running back to the farmhouse, locking the doors, and pretending he had seen nothing. But Jed Harper was not the kind of man to hide from the unknown. Humans had always survived because of their curiosity, their courage, and their refusal to submit to forces they did not understand. He took a deep breath, tightened his coat, and stepped closer. The closer he got, the more the shimmer revealed. It was enormous, taller than any building he had ever seen on Earth, wider than 100 cattle pens combined. Its edges shifted constantly, twisting and folding in ways that seemed impossible. The light inside it was not just bright. It was intelligent. Patterns formed and disappeared, like a living code, moving too fast for any human to read fully. Jed squinted, trying to make sense of it. The patterns reminded him of his old engineering books, complex diagrams of machines and energy flows. But this was not man-made. It was organic, alive in a way that defied explanation. A shiver ran down his spine, but not from fear. This was awe. Pure, undeniable awe. He reached out, instinctively, and the shimmer reacted. Ripples ran through the air, as if he had touched water. A warmth spread from his fingertips up his arm, but it was not heat in the usual sense. It was energy foreign, powerful, and alive. Jed staggered back slightly, blinking to clear his vision. He felt like he was standing at the edge of something far greater than himself. The cattle had stopped grazing again. They huddled closer together, uneasy but not fleeing. The world seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind had slowed, carrying only the faint rustle of grass across the plains. It was as if the entire planet had paused, waiting to see what the human would do next. Then, Jed felt it again, a presence in his mind. The voice from before was back, but this time, it was clearer, stronger. "Do not approach. Do not interfere." Jed shook his head, trying to clear the thought. He had never believed in ghosts or spirits, and he was certain this was no dream. It was something intelligent, something alien. But humans did not back away from challenges. Humans explored, humans learned, humans survived. And in that simple truth, Jed felt a surge of determination. He walked closer again, studying the shimmer. Shapes and symbols swirled within it, almost like letters or numbers, but not from any language he had ever seen. They were alive, moving with purpose. And yet they seemed to respond to him. Jed realized that the shimmer was not just a structure, it was a being, or at least controlled by a being. And it was aware of him. Curiosity burned in him stronger than fear. Jed began to take notes, scratching symbols and descriptions onto a small notebook he carried in his coat pocket. The shimmer's patterns shifted as he wrote, almost as if it was observing his attempts to understand it. For the first time, Jed felt something remarkable, a connection. Humanity's greatest strength was not brute force or advanced technology. It was the ability to adapt, to learn, to reason, and somehow, the shimmer was responding to that human spark. Hours passed. The sun sank completely below the horizon, leaving only the shimmer's light and the stars above. Jed noticed a change in the pattern. The light pulsed faster, almost like a heartbeat, and the shapes inside it grew sharper and more defined. His pulse matched it unconsciously. He could feel a rhythm in the energy, a kind of communication that bypassed sound or sight. Then, suddenly, the shimmer projected something entirely different. Images flashed in Jed's mind. Vast alien cities, buildings taller than mountains, streets filled with beings that moved gracefully, their forms unlike anything human. Machines hovered above the ground, moving in perfect synchronization, and the skies were filled with flying structures that resembled living creatures more than technology. Jed staggered back, clutching his head. The images were not threatening, they were a display. A glimpse of knowledge far beyond humanity. He realized with a thrill that he was witnessing intelligence far older, far more advanced than any human civilization. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming, yet it sparked something deep within him. Humans had always faced impossible odds. They had survived in the harsh deserts of Earth, conquered oceans, and traveled to space. Humanity had endured plagues, wars, and the void of the cosmos itself, and Jed felt that same indomitable spirit now, standing before a being or intelligence that could have crushed him in an instant. But humans did not give up. Humans endured. Humans observed. He studied the shimmer's movements, trying to find a pattern in the chaos. Every twist, every pulse, seemed like a challenge, a puzzle to solve. His mind raced, comparing shapes, noting repetitions, and trying to predict the next change. Hours could have passed, or minutes. Time seemed meaningless in the presence of such power. Then the voice returned, more insistent. "You do not belong here. Turn away." Jed shook his head. He would not run. He could feel the intelligence probing him, testing him, perhaps even judging him. And yet, he felt no fear, only determination. Humans were remarkable because they adapted. Humans were curious because they sought to understand, and that would be his advantage. He stepped closer again, cautiously, and the shimmer's light seemed to shift in response. The air vibrated, pressing against him like a gentle wave. Images flashed again. But this time, Jed focused. He tried to understand what the shimmer was showing him, not just with his eyes, but with his mind. He let his instincts guide him, and something astonishing happened. The shimmer pulsed in recognition. It slowed, the images fading into softer patterns. Jed realized that the intelligence had not expected him to endure, to analyze, to engage. Most beings would have fled in terror. But humans were unpredictable. Humans could face the unknown without succumbing to panic, and that unpredictability fascinated the shimmer. For the first time, Jed felt a sense of triumph. He was a simple rancher, yet here he stood, facing an alien intelligence that had existed for eons. He had not cowered. He had not fled. He had observed, learned, and adapted. And in that moment, he realized the truth. Humans were extraordinary. Not because of strength or weapons, but because of courage, curiosity, and resilience. Night deepened. The shimmer pulsed slowly, almost like a living heartbeat. Jed felt a new sense of clarity. He would not turn away. He would not let fear dictate his actions. Humanity had a spark, a light that no alien intelligence could extinguish, and that spark was his guide now, shining brighter than any shimmer, any signal, any unknown force in the universe. The wind carried a chill across the plains, but Jed did not notice. The stars twinkled coldly above, distant yet familiar. He knew that the shimmer would not last forever, that it could vanish in an instant. But he also knew this: he had glimpsed something incredible, something that humanity could one day understand, and that understanding would make them stronger, wiser, and more remarkable than ever before. Jed Harper took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the shimmer surround him. He was small, fragile, and human, but in that moment, he was part of something larger, something infinite, something that had the potential to change the course of his species. And he smiled. For the first time, Jed realized that humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was thriving. Humanity was facing the unknown and standing tall. He would not look away. The shimmer pulsed softly under the night sky, a living, breathing enigma hovering above the plains. Jed Harper stood alone, the cold air biting at his skin, yet he felt an energy inside himself he had never known before. The voice, the warning, had quieted, almost as if it were watching him, waiting to see what a human would do. Jed's eyes never left the shimmer. He had no idea what it was, or why it had chosen to appear on his ranch, but he knew this: humans were not creatures to simply turn and flee. Jed felt a strange connection with the shimmer. Each pulse of light, each shifting shape, seemed to carry a rhythm that his mind could almost follow. His instincts screamed that this intelligence was older and far more powerful than humanity. Yet his heart throbbed with pride. Humans had survived against impossible odds. Humans had tamed planets, built civilizations, and reached for the stars. And now, here he was, standing at the edge of the unknown, facing something that could have crushed him in an instant. He focused. He tried to understand the patterns within the shimmer. Shapes twisted and folded in impossible ways, like geometry that defied Euclid. The light flashed in sequences that seemed almost like a language. Jed scribbled notes, drawing symbols in his notebook as fast as he could. The shimmer responded. Its pulses quickened when he wrote certain patterns, slowed when he hesitated, as if it were testing him. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its meaning. Jed could feel the energy vibrating through the ground, into his boots, up his legs. The stars above, cold and distant, seemed to pale beside the glow of the shimmer. And then, images began flashing in his mind. Cities of impossible scale. Machines that moved with precision no human could match. Beings that floated or shifted form as easily as air changed shape. Jed staggered, holding his head. He realized these images were not just pictures, they were ideas, knowledge, glimpses into the mind of a species far older than humanity. Most would have collapsed under the weight of such revelation. But Jed's mind adapted. Humans had always faced the incomprehensible. Humans had always survived. He reached out mentally, as if he could touch the intelligence directly. The shimmer responded immediately. The light bent, pulsing toward him in tiny waves. Jed could almost hear a sound in the vibrations, a melody he had never known but somehow understood. And then, for the first time, he sensed curiosity, not fear, from the shimmer itself. Humans were strange, Jed realized. Fragile and unpredictable. Full of emotion, yet capable of reason. And the shimmer, he suspected, had never encountered a mind like his. It was probing, yes, but it was also observing, learning. struggling to understand a species that refused to act predictably. The wind shifted, carrying the faint rustle of grass across the plains. Jed blinked, and the shimmer changed again. Images of conflict flashed in his mind, massive battles, starships clashing in the void, civilizations rising and falling. But there was something different about these images. They were not meant to frighten him. They were a test, a challenge. Could a human mind comprehend them and endure? Jed gritted his teeth. He realized that the shimmer was evaluating humanity itself. Most species, confronted with such power, would have fled or submitted. Humans did not. Humans observed, reasoned, adapted. And that made them dangerous, in ways the shimmer had never calculated. He steadied himself and began to move closer. The air rippled around the shimmer, pressing against him like water. But he did not falter. Each step was deliberate, measured. He was small, fragile, human, but he was also intelligent, courageous, and endlessly curious. And in that moment, he felt a spark, a deep, unshakable pride in his species. The shimmer reacted. Shapes and symbols twisted faster now, almost frantic, as if it were testing him more aggressively. The images in his mind became more vivid worlds, with strange ecosystems, planets covered entirely in oceans of liquid crystal, skies lit by 3 suns, beings composed of energy, rather than matter. Jed staggered, nearly losing his footing. But he forced himself to focus. He could endure. He could understand. He was human. The voice whispered faintly again. You cannot comprehend. You are fragile. Jed shook his head, breathing heavily. Fragile. Maybe, but resilient. Weak. Maybe, but adaptive. Scared. Maybe, but never surrendering. Humans had always survived when everything seemed impossible. They had explored frozen wastelands, faced deadly predators, and survived the void of space itself. And here he was, a single human facing something beyond reckoning, refusing to back down. He stared, and the shimmer stared back. For hours, it was a silent contest of wills. Jed felt every pulse of light, every vibration in the air, every shift in the energy, as if it were a conversation. He learned to anticipate its movements, to understand its rhythm. He scribbled notes furiously, piecing together fragments of patterns, seeking logic in chaos. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, he realized something astounding. The shimmer was adapting to him as he adapted to it. This intelligence, Jed understood, had never encountered something quite like a human. It had probed other species and found them predictable, weak, easily manipulated. But humans were different. Humans endured when others failed. Humans adapted when others froze. Humans persevered when the odds were hopeless. A subtle smile crossed Jed's face. He realized that he had passed a threshold. The shimmer's pulsing light slowed slightly. The images softened. The intensity of the energy around him eased. And in that moment, Jed felt an exhilaration he could not explain. He was standing on the frontier of understanding, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. The night deepened, and the shimmer continued to hover silently, watching, waiting. Jed felt no fear now, only purpose. He was human. He was alive, and he had survived the staring contest with something far older and far stronger than himself. Then the shimmer shifted again, sending a new series of images into his mind. This time, they were not just visions, they were possibilities. He saw humans exploring distant planets, building thriving colonies, encountering new species, creating technology that harnessed the stars themselves. He saw courage, ingenuity, and compassion. He saw humans enduring even in the coldest, harshest places. Jed staggered back, awestruck. The shimmer was showing him a vision of humanity's potential, what humans could become if they persevered, if they remained curious, if they never surrendered to fear. And in that vision, he understood something profound. Humans were not just survivors. They were explorers, innovators, and dreamers. And that spark, the spark of curiosity and courage, was what made them unique. The voice whispered one last time. You endure. You adapt. You survive. Jed smiled, exhausted but exhilarated. He had stared into the mind of something beyond comprehension and had not faltered. He had endured. He had adapted. He had survived, and in doing so, he had proven something fundamental, not just about himself, but about humanity. Humans were remarkable. Not because of their strength, or speed, or technology. Humans were remarkable because they refused to be broken by fear. They sought understanding where others fled. They adapted when others perished. And they persevered when everything seemed impossible. Jed Harper stood alone under the stars, the shimmer above him pulsing softly, as if acknowledging the truth he had discovered. He was a simple rancher, yes, but he was also a witness, a participant in something extraordinary, and he knew, deep in his heart, that humanity would not only endure but thrive, no matter what the universe threw at them. The wind whispered through the plains, carrying the faint scent of grass and earth. The stars twinkled coldly above, but Jed's eyes shone with a quiet fire. He had faced the unknown, and had not turned away, and he knew that whatever came next, humans would meet it head-on. With courage, curiosity, and unshakable determination. For the first time, Jed Harper felt the weight and the wonder of his species in full measure. He was human, and that was enough. The shimmer hung above the plains like a living sentinel, pulsating faintly in the cold night air. Jed Harper's feet were firmly planted in the soil, his eyes locked on the glowing entity. The stars overhead seemed pale in comparison, and even the wind carried a weight, as if the world itself had grown still, to watch the moment unfold. He had stared into the shimmer for hours, or maybe days. Time no longer mattered, and he had endured. He had adapted. He had survived. But now, the shimmer began to change. Its pulsing light slowed, shifting into a rhythm that seemed more deliberate, more purposeful. Jed felt it like a heartbeat not of flesh, but of energy and intelligence far older than anything human. The images returned, but this time they were different. They were no longer just visions of alien cities or impossible landscapes. They were possibilities, futures that could exist, depending on the choices humans would make. Jed staggered back slightly, absorbing the first image. It showed humans spreading across the stars, building cities on barren worlds, creating machines that harnessed energy from suns, thriving in places where life had no right to exist. The vision changed rapidly, showing humans navigating dangers, asteroid storms, hostile alien species, environmental collapse. But each time, humans adapted, survived, and grew stronger. His breath came in shallow bursts. The shimmer was showing him humanity's potential, not just survival, but greatness. Humans were fragile, yes, but their greatest strength lay in their minds, their courage, and their unwillingness to accept limits. Jed's heart swelled with pride. Humans, he realized, were remarkable. They could endure what others could not. They could innovate when others faltered. They could persevere where others would fail. The shimmer pulsed again, and Jed felt a vibration run through his body. The images now seemed to respond to him, changing in response to his reactions. When he flinched at a scene of disaster, the shimmer softened it. When he leaned in, eager to understand, it sharpened the images, offering him clearer glimpses of human ingenuity. It was learning from him, or perhaps it was allowing him to learn from it. Jed knelt on the ground, overwhelmed, yet exhilarated. Humans had faced impossible odds countless times, yet they had always endured. They had crossed oceans, tamed deserts, survived wars, and now they were reaching for the stars. The shimmer seemed to acknowledge this truth, as if recognizing that humanity's greatest weapon was not strength, but spirit. Then the images shifted again, faster, more intensely. Jed saw humans interacting with other life forms, learning from them, negotiating rather than fighting. He saw humans building alliances, exploring strange planets, and solving problems that no single mind could comprehend alone. And in each scene, he felt something extraordinary. Humans were not just surviving, they were teaching, learning, and improving. They were evolving, not physically, but in thought, ingenuity, and resilience. The shimmer pulsed brighter, almost as if it were applauding the human spirit. Jed realized that it had been testing him, but now it was revealing something deeper. Humans were unpredictable, uncalculable, and endlessly resourceful. That unpredictability, that spark of curiosity and courage, made them unique in the galaxy. Jed Harper, simple rancher though he was, felt the weight of that truth. He understood why the shimmer had come here. To him, he was a witness, a participant, and perhaps even a teacher, in its strange, alien way. He reached out his hand instinctively. The air rippled around him, and the shimmer pulsed in response. He felt a warmth, not heat, but energy, and it traveled up his arm, connecting him to the intelligence hovering above the plains. And then, a thought not in words, not in sound, but in understanding, entered his mind. Observe, adapt, endure, you will shape the future. Jed staggered back, overwhelmed, but he smiled. The message was simple, yet profound. Humans did not simply exist. They thrived. They learned. They adapted, and in doing so, they shaped not only their own destiny, but the destiny of the worlds they touched. The shimmer shifted again, and this time it showed a vision that made Jed's heart pound. He saw humans using their creativity and ingenuity to survive extreme conditions, planets covered in ice, worlds scorched by suns, gas giants with crushing pressures, and not just surviving, but thriving. Humans built cities inside mountains, grew crops under alien suns, and harnessed energy that no other species could even imagine. Jed's mind raced. Each image confirmed something he had always believed. Humans were not ordinary. They were extraordinary. Their strength lay not in brute force, but in their minds, their hearts, and their refusal to give up. Even when confronted with beings far older, far stronger, far more intelligent, humans could adapt. They could endure. They could overcome. He knelt again, feeling the vibrations of the shimmer beneath him. His notebook lay open at his feet, scribbled with symbols, patterns, and sketches. None of it truly captured the magnitude of what he was seeing. Words could not explain the power, the intelligence, the potential. But that did not matter. Humans did not need perfection to act. They needed courage, curiosity, and the will to endure. And Jed felt all three burning within him. The shimmer's light softened, forming shapes that seemed almost like hands reaching out not to harm, but to guide. Jed realized that it was offering humanity a choice, not a command. Humans could remain small, fragile, and fearful, or they could rise, adapt, and claim their place among the stars. The decision, it seemed, was theirs. Jed smiled, exhaustion and exhilaration mixing in equal measure. Humans had survived the impossible countless times. They had faced death, disease, and disaster. Yet they endured. And now, in the presence of an intelligence that dwarfed all human comprehension, they had a chance to prove themselves once again. The stars twinkled coldly above, distant and indifferent. Yet Jed felt a warmth in his chest. He was not alone. Humanity was not alone. Even on this remote ranch, on the edge of human space, the spark of human ingenuity and courage burned brighter than any alien light. He rose to his feet, taking a step closer to the shimmer. His hand trembled slightly, but his resolve was unshakable. Humans had always faced the unknown and turned it into opportunity. They had crossed deserts, oceans, and voids of space. They had survived when the odds were against them, and they would do so again. The shimmer pulsed in acknowledgement, and Jed understood that it had seen what humans were capable of. It had tested him, challenged him, and in doing so, it had revealed the truth. Humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons, not in their machines, not in their numbers, but in their minds, their hearts, and their courage. Jed Harper, simple rancher from a lonely world, felt a swell of pride. He was human. And humans had endured, adapted, and thrived where no one else could. That spark, the human spark, was enough to shape the future of the stars. The night deepened, and the shimmer began to fade, its light softening to a gentle glow. Jed felt a profound sense of calm. The challenge was not over, he knew. But the first test had been passed. Humans had proven themselves capable of facing the incomprehensible. They had endured. They had adapted. And they had survived. As the shimmer receded, leaving the plains quiet once more, Jed Harper looked up at the stars and smiled. Humanity had a future. And he had glimpsed it. They were fragile, yes, but also brilliant, resourceful, and courageous. And that was more than enough. The wind swept across the plains, carrying with it the faint rustle of grass and the scent of earth. The stars twinkled coldly above, yet Jed's eyes shone with a quiet fire. He had stared into the mind of the unknown, and humanity had not faltered. They had endured. They had adapted. They had survived, and he knew, with unshakable certainty, that humans would rise. The shimmer had disappeared, leaving only a faint glow in the northern plains where it had hovered. Jed Harper stood alone, the cool night air brushing against his face. His heart still raced, his mind spinning with everything he had witnessed. The experience had been overwhelming, yet it had also filled him with a profound sense of purpose. Humanity, he realized, was capable of incredible things the galaxy had never anticipated. He looked around the ranch, at the cattle grazing quietly under the stars, at the familiar fences, at the distant mountains that framed the horizon. Everything seemed normal, yet he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The shimmer had shown him not just the future of humanity, but the potential of his species to endure, adapt, and thrive in the face of the unknown. Jed sat on a fence post, rubbing his face with his hands. The night was silent, but the memory of the shimmer's light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat lingered. He could still feel the vibrations in the ground, the gentle warmth of the energy, and the knowledge that humans were remarkable. They were fragile, yes, but they were also brave, resourceful, and unyielding. That spark, the spark of curiosity and courage, was what made them extraordinary. He reached for his radio, hoping to contact the nearby colonies. Static filled the device at first, but after a moment, a faint signal appeared. He began to transmit, his voice steady but urgent. He told the others about the shimmer, about what he had seen, and about the truth he had realized. Humans were not just survivors, they were explorers, innovators, and dreamers. They had the ability to endure where others would fail, to learn where others would falter, and to adapt where others would perish. The transmission crackled through the void, reaching colonies that had long thought humanity's frontier worlds were quiet and uneventful. Jed spoke with passion, his words carrying not just information, but inspiration. He shared the visions of humanity spreading across the stars, of humans thriving on hostile worlds, of humans encountering new life forms and creating alliances rather than succumbing to fear. As he spoke, Jed felt a warmth in his chest. It was not just pride. It was hope. Humanity had faced impossible odds countless times, and yet they endured. Now, standing alone on his ranch, Jed realized that humans had the power to shape the universe itself. The shimmer had tested him, challenged him, and revealed humanity's greatest strength: their courage, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit. The nights that followed were quiet but charged with anticipation. Jed continued to watch the plains, half expecting the shimmer to return. It did not, but the lessons he had learned lingered in his mind like a beacon. He began to prepare, gathering data, writing detailed notes, and sharing his observations with neighboring colonies. He realized that humanity's greatest advantage was not weapons or numbers, but their ability to adapt, to learn, and to persevere in the face of the incomprehensible. The weeks passed, and Jed noticed changes in himself. He moved with a newfound confidence, spoke with clarity, and approached problems with a deeper understanding. The shimmer had left him with more than memories, it had left him with insight, and with a vision of humanity's potential. He began to see the possibilities in every challenge, the opportunities in every obstacle. Humanity, he knew, was capable of rising above the limits imposed by fear, doubt, and uncertainty. One night, as he gazed at the stars, Jed saw a faint glimmer on the horizon, not the shimmer, but something new. He could not identify it, but he felt no fear. Instead, he felt anticipation. Humanity had been tested, and they had endured. Whatever this new signal represented, Jed knew that humans were ready. They had the spark, the courage, and the ingenuity to face it head-on. He remembered the warning voice from the shimmer. "Do not look there." Jed chuckled softly. Humans did not turn away from the unknown. Humans explored, adapted, and endured. That was their nature. And that nature had been acknowledged, respected, and challenged by something far beyond their understanding. Humans had passed the test. And now, they would rise. The following morning, Jed rode across the plains on his old horse, feeling the wind against his face and the sun warming his back. He observed the land with a renewed sense of wonder, seeing the patterns of life, the flow of water, and the resilience of every plant and animal. Humanity, he thought, was not so different. They too were part of the natural order, capable of thriving against odds that seemed insurmountable. He stopped near the fence line, looking toward the northern horizon where the shimmer had appeared. His mind was racing with possibilities. He imagined humans building settlements on distant worlds, creating machines that harnessed energy from stars, and forming alliances with alien species. He imagined humans thriving where others would fail, using their intelligence, courage, and curiosity to shape the universe. Jed knew that this was only the beginning. The shimmer had been a test, a challenge, and a revelation. Humanity had passed, and now it was their turn to rise. He felt a surge of determination. He would continue to share his experiences, to inspire others, and to prepare humanity for whatever lay ahead. The universe was vast, full of unknowns. But humans were ready. They had the spark, they had the courage, and they had each other. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the plains, Jed felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had faced the unknown and had not turned away. He had witnessed humanity's potential and had survived to share it. And in doing so, he had become part of something greater, a movement, a future, a destiny that stretched across the stars. The shimmer might never return, but its message was clear. Humans were remarkable. They had endured, adapted, and thrived. They had faced the incomprehensible and had emerged stronger, and that was a truth that could never be taken away. Jed mounted his horse and rode back toward the farmhouse, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the thrill of possibility. Humanity had a future, and he had a role to play in it. The stars above seemed brighter now, filled with the promise of discovery, adventure, and achievement. He knew that humans would reach them, not as fragile creatures cowering in fear, but as explorers, innovators, and dreamers capable of shaping the universe in ways no one could have predicted. The wind rustled the grass, the sun shone brightly across the plains, and Jed Harper smiled. The shimmer had come, had tested humanity, and had left. But humans had endured, adapted, and survived. They had proven themselves capable of greatness, and Jed knew that this was only the beginning. No matter what the universe held, humans would rise. They would explore, learn, and thrive. They would face the unknown with courage, curiosity, and determination, and they would do so not as mere survivors, but as a species destined to leave its mark on the stars. Jed paused at the edge of the ranch, looking out at the horizon one last time. The plains were quiet. The wind whispered softly, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Humanity had passed the test. Humanity had endured. Humanity would rise, and Jed Harper, simple rancher though he was, had witnessed it. He had seen the spark of humanity shine brighter than any alien light, brighter than any fear, brighter than any darkness. He had seen the potential of his species, and he had survived to tell the story. The future was waiting, vast and unknown, but humanity was ready. And Jed Harper, standing on his quiet ranch under the endless sky, knew one undeniable truth. Humans were extraordinary. The universe had tested them, the stars had challenged them, and humanity had risen.